This isn't just another story about bullies. It's about a man who turned their arrogance into regret and showed them the true meaning of strength in the most unexpected way. It started like any other day at the park. Families enjoying picnics, children playing, and joggers moving along the trails. Among them was a black man sitting quietly on a bench, minding his business, sipping water and scrolling through his phone. He looked peaceful, relaxed even. But nearby, a group of loud leather-clad bikers had other ideas. They spotted him, exchanged smirks, and decided to make him their entertainment for the day. The bikers, a rough-looking crew, strutted over with arrogance. Their laughter carried across the park as they surrounded him, their presence intimidating but calculated. One of them, the apparent leader, leaned in close, sneering, "Hey boy, lost? This ain't your kind of place." The others chuckled, feeding off his crude humor. The man didn't respond. He looked up briefly, his face calm and unreadable, then returned to his phone. That calm seemed to irritate them even more. Their taunts escalated. Another biker tossed an empty soda can at his feet. "You deaf or something? We're talking to you." The group egged each other on, their comments becoming nastier and louder. They were looking for a reaction, desperate to provoke him, to humiliate him in front of everyone watching. Onlookers began to notice the tension. Some whispered among themselves, unsure whether to intervene, while others pulled out their phones, sensing that this might not end well. Still, the man didn't take the bait. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice, didn't show anger. He simply sat there, composed, his body language almost defiant in its calmness. But the bikers weren't satisfied with that. They needed more. One of them kicked over the man's water bottle, spilling it onto the ground. Another reached out and flicked his hat off his head, letting it fall to the dirt. "Look at him! Too scared to say a word," one of them scoffed. The crowd was growing uneasy, the tension thick in the air. Yet, the man still didn't react. Finally, the bikers crossed the line. The leader shoved him hard enough to force him back on the bench. "What? You too scared to stand up for yourself?" The others cheered him on, laughing and mocking. It wasn't just words anymore. It was physical. The man slowly stood up, brushing the dirt off his clothes. His calm demeanor shifted slightly, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. The bikers mistook it for fear. "Yeah, that's right," one of them jeered. "Now you're getting it." They didn't realize they were toying with the wrong person. By this point, the onlookers were torn between stepping in and staying back. A few murmured among themselves, "This isn't right." A mother hurried her children away from the scene, while others kept their phones trained on the unfolding events. The bikers, confident in their numbers, continued to escalate. They laughed, taunted, and shoved him again, thinking they had full control of the situation. Little did they know, they had just unleashed something they were entirely unprepared for. The moment the man stood up, the atmosphere shifted. He wasn't towering or visibly intimidating, but something about his stance made the bikers pause for a fraction of a second. It wasn't fear they saw, it was control. But their arrogance quickly dismissed the warning signs. The leader of the bikers sneered, stepping closer. "What's the matter? Finally growing a backbone?" His friends laughed, circling around like vultures, ready to pick apart their prey. They expected their target to fumble, beg, or perhaps throw a weak punch. They had no idea what they were about to face. The man didn't raise his voice or hurl insults back. Instead, he took a small step forward, his eyes locking onto the leader's. That calmness hadn't left him. It had only shifted into a silent but sharp focus. The leader, eager to show dominance, swung a lazy punch, assuming the man would crumble under his strength. It didn't land. With a speed that seemed impossible to the crowd, the man deflected the punch with ease, his movement almost fluid. In the same motion, he stepped to the side, twisting the leader's arm in a way that sent him stumbling forward. It wasn't flashy, but it was precise. For the first time, the smug confidence on the bikers' faces wavered. The leader quickly recovered, his ego bruised. "You think you're funny, huh?" He spat, gesturing for his crew to step in. Two bikers lunged toward the man, but it was like watching a choreographed dance, except the bikers were woefully outmatched. The first was met with a swift kick to the chest, sending him sprawling backward. The second found himself on the ground after a clean sweep to his legs. The man moved with a precision that spoke of years of discipline and training, every motion calculated to neutralize without causing excessive harm. By now, the onlookers were no longer silent. Gasps and murmurs filled the air as they watched what they thought would be a one-sided assault turn into something entirely different. People began recording, their phones capturing every movement of the man who seemed untouchable. The bikers, now visibly frustrated, regrouped. "Get him!" the leader barked, anger lacing his voice. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a desperate attempt to save face. Three of them charged together, their size and numbers meant to overwhelm. The man remained calm. He sidestepped one attacker and used his momentum to send him crashing into another. A well-placed elbow stopped the third in his tracks. The crowd erupted into cheers, the energy shifting entirely. What was once an uneasy tension had become admiration for the man holding his ground. By the time the leader stepped in again, his crew was either on the ground or too hesitant to move forward. But the man didn't gloat or taunt. He stood firm, his breathing steady, his gaze unwavering. The leader hesitated, clearly weighing his options. The silence in that moment was deafening. This wasn't the outcome they had expected. What had started as a game, a cruel show of dominance, was now a public humiliation, one they wouldn't easily forget. The leader of the bikers stood frozen for a moment, his confidence cracking under the weight of what had just unfolded. His crew, once cocky and loud, were either sprawled on the ground or too afraid to step back into the fray. The crowd had grown larger, murmuring in disbelief at the scene unfolding before their eyes. Phones were raised, capturing every second, ensuring this moment would live far beyond the park. But the man, standing calm in the middle of the chaos, didn't look for attention. His eyes locked onto the leader, who now seemed hesitant, his bravado slipping away. The air was thick with anticipation as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Would the leader finally back down, or would he make the biggest mistake of his life? With a growl of frustration, the leader charged forward. His pride wouldn't let him walk away without trying to salvage what little respect he had left. He threw a wild punch, a desperate attempt to regain control of the situation. But the man was ready. He moved like water, smooth and deliberate, sidestepping the punch and using the momentum to redirect the leader's body forward. Before the leader could regain his balance, the man locked his arm in a hold, bringing him to his knees with a sharp but controlled motion. The crowd erupted in a mix of gasps and cheers. People couldn't believe what they were witnessing. A single man calmly dismantling a gang that had seemed so invincible just moments ago. The leader struggled against the hold, his face contorted with pain and humiliation. But the man didn't twist the arm further or apply unnecessary pressure. He was in full control, showing restraint even when he had every reason to let his anger take over. "You've done enough," the man said, his voice low but steady. It wasn't loud, but it carried weight, silencing the remaining murmurs in the crowd. The leader stopped struggling for a moment, the reality of his position sinking in. He was beaten, not just physically, but emotionally. The man released him, stepping back and giving him space to retreat. The leader staggered to his feet, his face a mix of rage and shame. For a moment, it looked like he might lunge again, but he stopped himself. His crew, still recovering, avoided his gaze, unwilling to follow his lead any further. They had all seen enough. The crowd, now firmly on the side of the man, began clapping and cheering. What had started as a tense, uncomfortable scene had turned into a moment of triumph. Strangers in the audience were calling out words of encouragement, their admiration clear. The leader barked an order to his crew, his voice shaky but forceful. "Let's go." The group shuffled away, their heads low, their arrogance completely stripped away. As they left, the man stood silently, watching them go without a word. He didn't gloat or taunt. He didn't need to. His actions had spoken louder than anything he could say. As the bikers disappeared into the distance, the crowd surged forward. Some people wanted to thank him. Others just wanted to shake his hand. Questions buzzed through the air. Who is he? Where did he learn to fight like that? But the man didn't stay to answer. He nodded politely to those who approached, then quietly walked away, leaving the park as calmly as he had entered it. In his wake, the park felt different. The oppressive energy the bikers had brought was gone, replaced by a shared sense of awe and relief. People who had been bystanders just moments ago were now talking excitedly, replaying the events in their minds and on their phones. It was clear this wasn't a story that would stay contained in that park. It was destined to go far beyond it, a testament to how one man had turned a moment of cruelty into one of quiet strength. The bikers left humiliated, their arrogance shattered, while the man walked away with quiet dignity, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed his strength and restraint. The story wasn't just about a fight. It was about standing tall against hate without losing control. It reminded everyone watching that true power lies in grace under pressure. Subscribe for more stories that reveal what happens when bullies meet their match.